Welcome. I'm Ariella Neckritz, JWI's Director of Violence Prevention and Training. Our panel today is an opportunity to talk about using your voice. It's an invitation to think more deeply about courage, community, and vulnerability. Thank you to Women to Watch honoree and founder of Mosaic Visions, Sanae, JWI's Senior Advocacy and Policy Fellow, Rachel Apfelbaum, and Executive Director of Atlanta Jews of Color Council, Inc., Victoria Rags, and JWI's New York Young Women's Impact Network DEI Chair, Temmi Merlis, for joining us and sharing your insights. So, Rachel, you've been a core leader of the DC Young Women's Impact Network and currently are an instrumental part of JWI's advocacy work. How has JWI helped you to find your voice, and how does it feel to use your voice as a part of a community?
Thank you, Ariella. So I've been involved in the Young Women's Impact Network since about 2015. However, I really got involved in the Impact Network in 2018 through Advocacy Day, which I found such a wonderful opportunity to develop my skills and my knowledge regarding advocating for legislation impacting women and girls nationwide. It really gave me the confidence to speak to lawmakers and their staff about the issues that are important to us as women and girls, and also at Jewish Women International. Through that opportunity, it really also got me involved in it on a professional level. And so now I am working with JWI as a Senior Policy and Advocacy Fellow to really get involved in the legislative issues. And it really just gave me the opportunity to understand how to get involved. I think it can be a little intimidating for women to know how to speak up about these issues. And it really gave me the knowledge and the skills that I needed to be able to do that effectively and use my voice to create real change. I also wanted to mention that JWI really gave me the opportunity to develop my public speaking abilities from moderating panels with US and state lawmakers. And that's really given me so many other professional opportunities as well through those connections. And so I really appreciate that it's kind of bolstered my speaking ability and really made me feel much more confident in front of an audience. And so it's been really empowering to kind of use my voice this way and to really develop those opportunities that are so important for me, both personally and professionally. So thank you.
I'm so proud of you, Rachel, and it's been an honor to witness you in these varied roles, really taking leadership and using your voice. D, as the founder and visionary of an organization that is action oriented, what does it mean to you to use your voice? How did you get, the courage and the confidence to speak up and speak out? And how do you hope people will use their voice, their power, and/or their privilege to really create change?
Thank you. I think using our voice and finding that voice and how it is important to do so is to help guide humanity, to remain fair and honest and tolerant. And it's very important nowadays, right now, to use those voices. And in our Jewish tradition, it demands us that we speak up for the downtrodden, we judge righteously, and champion the poor and the needy. And so it's intrinsic in our culture that we use our voice and speak out for those that cannot otherwise use their voices. I found the courage and confidence to speak up and speak out. I think that was the second part of that question. Just doing some soul searching and really coming to that moment, especially in 2020. I think that was a very big year for many people that were not using their voice to really be empowered and to be encouraged to really take that moment and say, I really need to use my privilege in any way. And we all do have some sort of privilege, um, whether it's our community, whether it's our family and friends, to speak up for things that are unjust. Um, and I found that courage many years ago, just using voices and using that your privilege and the power of a voice, the power of your thoughts, the power of your story. When I was a little bit timid and not so courageous, I found, talking to people one-on-one, and then my friends would give me feedback and say, "Oh my God, I just want to tell you, your story really helped me." And just in those moments, it gave me that power to then speak to more people and to encourage my friends. And that encouraged me to say, just because you may think that your story or what you are saying and sharing with other people are insignificant, even if it touches one or two people and gives them that hope and courage to also do the same or to feel empowered, that's the importance of using voices. And the more that we use our voices collectively for any given topic, especially, I joined Meredith for a domestic violence roundtable. Just the power with all of those organizations being in one place for this roundtable is just amazing. The creativity, the action, the problem solving that comes from that. And the third part of your question is how do you hope people will use their voice, power, and privilege to create change? It just starts with one conversation. You don't have to speak in front of a room of 1,000 people. It just could be, amongst your girlfriends, in a group at a family table over Shabbat. I know I find a lot of wisdom just, breaking bread over Shabbat dinner and getting that wisdom. And then, you don't have to, like I said, be a big orator, but you can start in baby steps in your community and showing up, doing your research, listening. It's not always about using your voice and speaking out, but it's listening and doing that sort of research. So I hope that that encapsulates your question.
Absolutely. So much of what you just shared about storytelling and building collective power really resonates for me. And I so agree with you about those little moments with your family at the Shabbat dinner can be fundamental because we know that a lot of things need to change. And so it's critical that we have those intentional conversations with people we're in community with, whether that's in your synagogue, at your house. With friends, right? To really work towards building the communities we seek to see and create. So thank you so much. I'm so excited to hear more of what you'll have to share, your pearls of wisdom at Women to Watch. But thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Ariella.
Victoria, as a change agent and trailblazer, what helps you to be vulnerable and share your truth? And what voices need to be at the table that are not currently represented or centered? What are your hopes for working together with JWI?
Yeah, those are very big questions, but we founded Atlanta Jews of Color Council because there needed to be a platform for Jews of color to speak for themselves. There was a lot of policy being made, a lot of funds being allocated without the people who were representative of those issues having any say in the matter. So we were like, if you don't have the people that your policy is for represented, then it really has no representation of them at all. For us, we like to work on a systematic level. A lot of people see racism as name calling or microaggressions. But for us, we believe that real change has to happen systemically. And for us, that is, we've got to have people of diverse identities around boardrooms. We've got to have people of diverse identities in committees. They have to have equity in hiring. Gender issues are also racial issues because we know half of women are women of color. So you can't have gender programs and gender equity without also considering women of color. Now, for us, although we are an organization that centers Jews of color, we know that all marginalized groups have to be included as well because Jews of color are disabled, Jews of color are LGBTQ, Jews of color are women. So the excuse me, but the multifacetedness of our program has to include everybody. So we see that our intersectional identities give us a complex, nuanced perspective that someone who hasn't lived our lived experience doesn't have. So if you haven't really experienced that, it's really different for you to be able to speak on something that you've never experienced yourself. So it's so important to have Jew of color voices, disabled voices, LGBT voices, anyone who's marginalized, those voices have to be at the table and included. And not just there, but they have to have leadership roles. They've got to have access to power. Diversity is not just having them there, but changing your policies and changing your curriculum. Give us access and give us power. Now, power shifts are a little uncomfortable for people because it's changing the status quo. So, like Dee said, people have to take baby steps, but it's in that discomfort that real growth occurs. So, when you're feeling uncomfortable about these systemic changes, that's when you need to lean into them. Because when you lean into that discomfort, is when you're able to really grow. And so that's where our work is. The hope that I have is that, I guess, when you are, as far as philanthropists, that they have metrics and transparency, because only 2% or less of philanthropy is directed to organizations that are owned by women and Jews of color. So we've got to change that. And what you do is, if you're going to be a donor or a philanthropist, you have to say, I will not give to you if you don't have some component. It can be very small, but you can incentivize people to make changes by, I will not give to you if you will not have a component of diversity or include the disabled or have women on your board. And then people are like, whoa, this is serious. Mm-hmm. So you can have an influence, but it's so important that you incentivize that influence and allow people who have different voices to have a say.
Thank you so much. I'm so inspired by your leadership, and you're absolutely right. We need critical systemic change from institutions and people in positions of power, really taking major steps to create change in our communities and recognizing the intersections of identities that people hold. And everything you shared about, centering directly impacted folks and actually being a part of these decision-making choices that will impact these communities is so critical. So thank you so much. And I encourage everyone who's watching to really think about, if you donate somewhere, looking at, what are the other places they donate to, and thinking about how exactly you can use your voice to shape future giving and to shape those decision-making choices. Listening is a critical skill. And Temmi, as a social worker and an advocate, how is deep listening connected to community building and social change? And how can we use our voices to amplify others' experiences, but also pass the mic?
Absolutely. Listening is really key, really being with someone in the moment and wanting to understand, seeking to understand them, because everyone wants to be seen, heard, and valued. Bear with me one moment. Everyone wants to feel seen, heard, and valued for who they are as they are. And it's our responsibility to create an inclusive community, a community that purposefully, right, doesn't assume that they understand the issue, right? They take time to sit and speak with someone, to better understand someone with, lived experience, as Victoria said, right? Someone can look at me and have an assumption of heteronormativity, right? Or cisgender, right? So I identify as gay and non-binary. So we can't assume that we understand someone, or we can't assume that we understand an issue without really having a deep conversation, creating more seats at the table in a purposeful way, and really giving people that space. And being diverse in community really creates a wealth of knowledge and connectivity for everybody. Because really, at the end of the day, we're more, alike than we think we are. And it's important to see each other's differences and to celebrate that, not just tolerate.
Thank you so much. I think that we have just this panel is a great reminder of how listening to each other we can learn so much, and I feel grateful to be in space to learn from all of you, and definitely so much of what you shared about assumptions. I know for myself as a queer person, how it feels to have your identity be invalidated when people make assumptions. So I so appreciate your vulnerability and openness and bringing your whole self to this space. So thank you all so much again for sharing. These have been really important questions, and I really, again, appreciate you all being so vulnerable and open with us.